So we're going to talk about the budget reduction recommendations that I will make to the Board of Education, which will occur February 17th, if I have that board meeting date correct. And I'm going to go through this. There's a number of slides, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions as well. I wanted to start with one, thanking all of you for coming, thanking all the individuals that provided recommendations for us to consider. We were just under 200 total recommendations between community, families, students, staff members that we were able to look at and really examine those opportunities. And then obviously look at a number of things that we were able to examine to come to this. So I just want to thank everybody who did contribute. There's going to be opportunity for more feedback as we go along, a couple of additional meetings that we're having coming up prior to the board meeting to listen to your feedback on the proposed recommendations that I have. And I'll start with these. These are hard. You know, we have to reduce by $3 million, which is roughly 10%. It's approximately $3 million, approximately 10% of the budget that we have to do within from this year prior to the next school year, which is a huge amount. So I think I've consistently said that the recommendations that I was going to present are not good recommendations. These are challenging. These are hard. These are significant items. So I just want to continue with that point. We are working with the Department of Education. They are requiring us to make these reductions because we're currently in a deficit. So we have to have these board approved by the end of February per the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. We just met with them again today to go over the proposals that we have, and we're very much in line with what their expectations are. So a few goals that we had through this process was we have really good staff that work with our kids, and they create a lot of wonderful learning experiences, a lot of outside of class learning experiences and growth opportunities. So we really worked at protecting that. How do we protect the student experience? Which part of that is really identifying, that ability to maintain staff members. If we drastically eliminate staff, which is a huge portion of our budget, it's roughly 86%. But if we dramatically reduce staff, we're going to dramatically change the student experience and some of those unique learning opportunities. So that was one area we were looking at, which ties into the protecting learning and safety, communicating openly. We just met with staff members a little bit ago to share with them what these recommendations are. And last week I met with staff who are going to lose their positions as part of this process. And, I think it's really hard for them. We're going to radically impact not only those individuals' lives and their profession, but also then all staff within the district, because there's some significant changes that we're going to recommend. But being transparent, I think, was important. Being open, communicate, listening to feedback, all that's very valuable. I know it creates a lot of anxiety, which I am apologetic of creating that. It's just the belief that being transparent is really important. Listening to people's feedback is really important. And I fully appreciate the things I'm going to present. There's going to be a lot of feedback to that because they are very challenging changes. So I'm going to go through the recommendations. There's only a few different slides. Again, I want to mention a couple things. One, I'll answer any questions here. We're going to have a survey that we'll share with you that you can provide feedback with that. We're also going to share it with staff. And then community in general, families, and students, because we want to hear feedback really from everybody who's impacted. The budget reduction, so I keep using the idea that we identify different buckets, different areas that these fall into. So first area is administrative and contracted staffing, which is roughly $980,000 of the reductions. That involves a couple of administrative positions I'll talk about, but we also outsource or contract with the ESC and others for staff, and we're significantly reducing that. Operations and buildings we're reducing by roughly $300,000. These are all rounded a little bit, so it's not the precise number. I was trying to give a rounded number, but $300,000 for operations and buildings, $380,000 reduction in classified staff, $800,000 in certified staff. Certified is teachers, classified is custodians, aides, food service folks, like just to explain that definition a little. Transportation reduction of roughly $200,000 and student fee changes, which will be $215,000 difference. So the changes. The first changes that I'm recommending to the Board of Education is that we close the preschool administration building, and then district administrative staff will move to the buildings. There will no longer be a separate administrative building. We'll all move into buildings, primarily high school, middle school, but south as well. We're going to close North Elementary as well. Grade levels for next year then, pre-K through second grade will be at South. Grades 3 through 6 will be at middle school. Grades 7 through 12 will be at the high school. The 7th grade and the 8th grade will have separate wings at the high school, separated within the building. I absolutely understand as a parent of 4 kids myself that all of that is going to have some reaction. I completely understand it. And I'm very happy to listen to that. The teams that we have already started working through the process of this and really identifying how we can create unique opportunities for kids, but also create some separation. Reduction in staff members, so these are the reductions that are part of this plan. 5 certified staff. Again, certified is your teachers primarily. 5 are through retirement, 7 are through staff reductions, so staff members that we're eliminating their positions. 3 classified staff retirements, 9 classified. Again, classified is custodians, aides, those types of positions. 9 classified staff reductions. 2 administrative staff reductions. Additional changes, we're going to reduce transportation to only students who live 2 miles from the school, and there will be cluster stops. Roughly number-wise, because we did work with transportation to identify the number of kids impacted, there's roughly 200 students who, it's like a net number, so it's, not student per student, but total number of students who are transported. There will be 200 less students who will have bus transportation. But again, I've already mentioned that we're closing North and they're going to South middle school buildings. All of those kids will get transportation because that'll be beyond 2 miles. By and large, all those students. And then we'll also use cluster stops, which means that some kids will walk up to 1/4 of a mile to a stop. Like the 1/4 of a mile is a max, but students may walk up to 1/4 of a mile to stops. Increased student fees. This was an area that we looked at a lot. I know at different meetings, like people had asked, like how much would it have to be solely self-funded? It's roughly $800. I mean, that's a very average number. These are huge increases. I fully know that, but we also tried to identify a number that was not outrageous, I guess is the right word. So high school extracurricular increases will go from 180 to 325. Middle school extracurricular increases will go from 120 to 215. There will be a district-wide technology fee of $45. Increases for K to 5 students will be by $12. 6 to 8 will be by $13. And high school fees are divided based on classes, so it'll be a roughly 10% of all high school fees increase. And then also, because I want to be very transparent about this, that there's also the expectation that each of the future years we will have a 5% increase beyond that. So I can't do the math that quick, but the 215 from middle school will go up 5%. That's probably like $11 the first year. Then it'll go up another 5% beyond that. So we tried to create an escalation to that, but not, again, an incredible escalation. We tried to tie it to a realistic number. Additional changes, we're going to eliminate 7th and 9th grade athletics. So the 7th grade students will be able to compete on the 7th and 8th grade team. The 9th grade students will be able to compete on the JV and varsity teams. That I know is also a huge impact. We're eliminating 2 administrative positions, which I talked about, which is 2 reductions that we've made. A question that people might think of at some point is we're obviously closing the building, shifting grade levels. There's an administrative shuffling that's going to occur too. That hasn't been fully decided at this point. My goal was to have that worked through after break, but there's been a couple little developments, so that change has not been decided yet, but there will be a shifting of some administrators based on building realignments. We're going to eliminate $450,000 in contracted services and expenses. A lot of that is services we contract with the ESC. So, for example, instead of having a curriculum director, we contract that work through the ESC. We're going to eliminate the contract. We're going to move the work back to the district. And I talked about the shuffling of administrators. That work will now be picked up by district administrators as opposed to outsourcing it. I believe that that was a great opportunity as we work through different options of making budget reductions, maintaining strong work, and quite directly enabling us to eliminate contracts but saving employees that are within the district. And I also believe that we'll be able to do that work well with the people that we have within the district. This is just an overview again of that one slide. I just divided it based on the costs per areas that we're saving. When we went through the plan, and this has been since the beginning, since when we started sharing this, is really identifying ideas, working through them, looking at the ideas that were shared with us, making adjustments. A couple of things that we were really trying to do was to create some ability to spread out the impact. We didn't want to overly impact families. We didn't want to overly impact students. We didn't want to ruin the student experience. We didn't want to just solely focus on transportation or eliminating staff. So we tried to look at shifting it to a number of different areas and looking at how do we do a little bit in different areas to get to that total. You'll also see we're not at $3 million. It's at 2.875. which does bring us to a zero balance. We still need to identify additional money, which is not going to be through any impact to students or any impact to reducing additional staff. It's going to be through us really identifying some small costs that we're able to reduce and do more efficiently. An example of that is we pay for Zoom licensing. We're eliminating that. That is not a lot of money. If I remember correctly, it's like $5,000. It's under $5,000. But it's trying to identify a lot of those little things that we pay for that we can reduce to enable us to get closer to that reduction goal. And it doesn't create a huge impact to students or families or even staff as well. This has really been a shared effort. We've listened to all the feedback that we've gotten. I know that I've said it, I'm going to keep saying it. There's nothing good that I'm recommending. I know all of this is really hard. I know it's a lot. I know it changes the impact to students, families, staff, and it is going to happen quickly. You know, it happens from now, and it all gets implemented prior to the next school year. So prior to us coming back in August. It's a lot of things we have to do, a lot of things we have to flush out. We have 3 teams right now that are primarily administrators who are working on the pre-K to 2 building, the 3 to 6 building, another team that's working on the 7 to 12 building, and then another team that's just focused on how do we make all the moves that we have to make, because it's a huge amount of moves in a short period of time. We met with staff, which I think a big point that I made with staff is that we want them to know so we can involve them in the process now, because we have to make a lot of decisions, and the more input we have, the more feedback we have, the better we'll be able to do it. I don't have all the answers of the pieces and parts and the changes. I don't think anyone individually does, but I think collectively, with having a lot of voices present and a lot of people giving thoughts and pushing back on ideas, we come to really good decisions. And there's been a number of those decisions that have already been made by listening to a lot of feedback about some of these pieces. So we look forward to continuing to do that. We want, like I said, we want to get family input, community input, and the buildings are going to share the form with students as well, so we can get their feedback as well, really to get the impact or the input from all those that are being impacted by this, because it is a lot of stuff that's impacting a lot of people. And then I'm going to fly through these because this just divides it a little bit more. There are 2 meetings, I can't remember where they are now. There are 2 meetings that are coming up pretty quickly. Andrew, can you help me with dates? So January 29th is one, and February 10th is the other, which is really an opportunity for me to listen very directly to people's feedback. There's also going to be the form that we'll share with you that you can provide feedback for, electronically as well. Fully appreciate there's going to be a lot of feedback. I want to hear it. I want to listen to it. I want to be reflective of it and consider that as we move forward with the recommendations we're going to make. We'll keep looking at things. We'll keep looking at ideas, but these decision points are pretty solid. There's always an opportunity to look at something differently, which is part of that idea of the feedback. But the ability to make some significant reductions through this process, I think we've aligned we've aligned the right ways to be able to do that. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to happily answer questions or listen to your feedback that you have. Yes. So the question was about busing, and if you do as the crow flies, which I think is the term 1.6, but if you drive it, it's 2.3-ish. So our transportation folks are going to have to look very specifically, because you're going to be in that bubble of will you get transportation or not. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. This is one of those challenges of, with these changes, Madison is not a walking friendly community for kids. It's not, which I fully get. And it's one of the reasons we looked at transportation, we tried to make a reasonable reduction, not an over the top reduction. I know it's still a bad reduction. I'm not saying it's not. So we would have to look. I mean, I don't have a real easy answer. Yeah. So our transportation department's going to start working on the plan after the board votes. And then we'll have, like at the end of February, we'll have for families, because I want them to do that early, we'll have, is your student getting transported or not? And then at the buildings with the different grade levels, we'll have like the radius identified so people can look at that too. Does that make sense? Okay, yes, sir. Yes, so the question was, have we looked at the potential financial increases at the 7 to 12 high school building for having more kids here? So I'll try to answer a couple parts. The one part is we have a permanent improvement levy, which is really for building needs. Currently, and it's not large. It's, if I remember correctly, it's $1 million. Like, it does not raise a ton of money. Currently, though, it is split between North, the admin preschool, and the high school. Next year, it'll be able to fully be focused on the 7 to 12 high school building. So we're going to have an increased finance ability for those kinds of permanent improvements, because the middle school and south building, when you pass the bond to build those, there was a permanent improvement amount set aside for those. So we don't use our general permanent improvement for, which I would say is for the older buildings. We don't use for the middle school or south. We use the permanent improvement, which was tied to the bond. But being able to take that money and no longer divert it between 3 older buildings, which one has historically had a great number of repairs and costs, we're now focusing it here is going to be a financially positive thing. I also would say, just because you touched on it, long term, we've got to look at what we're going to do with this building too. You know, it's an older building, it needs repairs. And as we go, if that comes up, I'll be happy to share some thoughts at least around that too. Other questions? And you can ask anything. Yes. You can say anything too. Sorry I interrupted you. Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for your compliment part at the beginning and point about a 7 to 12 building. You know, all these things are hard. You know, I'm going to keep saying that they're hard. I know that they're hard for families. They're hard for everyone. I think you had mentioned the car to me before, and I actually learned some more about this too, and I did hear about the history of the last time. And I do think that we need to look at those different opportunities. You know, the other thing I would say is Bingo is pretty incredible in the support that they bring for our kids. So I think that's another one to talk about what increased possibilities there could be. I'm not trying to speak for Bingo in any way, but to keep looking at opportunities, because I think that you're right. You know, when you look at the fees, I know that they're hard for families. I absolutely know that. So I think trying to find, and it's part of why I think it's important that we shared it with staff, we're sharing it with the community, because we want feedback. We want you to say, hey, this is really hard. Can you look at this? And then we can explore those things and see the possibilities. The last thing, I forgot. No, you're third. Sorry, you're third. Oh, athletics. Yep. Remembered. Yeah, that is hard. I will tell you that eliminating those two athletic team grades comes in right around just under $100,000 reduction. It's a lot. I will tell you very openly that you're right. There will be unintended consequences to this. I know I've said that with our administrative team a lot. There will be those, and there will be kids that because of the fee they won't play because they're in 7th grade. They won't play on the 7th, 8th grade team. Absolutely get that, but we tried to find, the right confluence of things that we could do. But it's part of sharing it, listening to feedback, and seeing with those folks that are involved in the 7th to 9th grade realm. And I know Bob and I at the high school have talked about this a lot, and to see, is there another way we could do it? And is there something else, a different opportunity? So, yeah. Yes. So I would, to answer that, the question was how long are these changes in effect? I would tell you, yeah, they're somewhat permanent, because by doing this, we are now, with that number I showed you, we are balanced next year through the next school year. We're balanced through the year after. We're balanced through the year after that. And actually, as I project it 5 years in the future, we're balanced for the next 5 years. So within 1 year, really difficult decisions, we have rebalanced the district, and we are no longer deficit spending. Now, we are not in some great financial place. We're not at zero, but we're not much above zero, so that's good. The other thing I keep talking about a lot is that we have to be really attentive to finances every single year now. And it's why we have a weekly meeting to look at finances and make live, in the moment decisions about what we're doing. The crazy things that happen, and it happens, I know, in everybody's personal life. We went out to start the buses the other day, and the cold was here, and the buses have 2 batteries in them, and 3 of the buses' batteries aren't working anymore because of the cold, so we had to buy new ones. Buses, batteries are pretty expensive, and we're talking, close to $1,000 for all that. That's a unexpected expense that we don't fully budget for, but we budget for those, unforeseen things that are going to happen. But, it's that happens, and Joe in the transportation department contacts me and says, Dan, I have to go get these batteries. I want you to know up front. To some people in education, that would be like, well, it's weird that they're calling and telling you they're buying batteries. No, we're really being attentive to everything. So every year from now forward, we've got to really look at our funding and make sure that, if in 2 years we have kids leave the district, we have to make sure that we look at their retirements, and do we replace the retirements, or do we reduce the attrition? Like, all those decisions year after year are going to have to be made. So I would tell you that this is somewhat permanent. It's the financial nature of education in Ohio right now. And the other answer, which I think I've openly said, would be to ask the community for more funding, which I think I've pretty openly said I'm not doing that. Like, I don't believe that's the right decision to make right now. I think it's something in the future. There's a conversation to be had about that, but again, if we're going to have the conversation, I think we need to be transparent and have the conversation. I think right now we've got to make really hard decisions to balance our budget. I know that was kind of a long answer, I think. Yes, sir. So the question, I think the crux of that is, for kids who are open enrolled, are we going to kick them out of the kids who are currently open enrolled in the district? Are we going to kick them out? Like, how's it going to happen with combining grade levels into different buildings? So something that, you know, as educators, I think we all believe pretty soundly in the idea that for kids, continuity is really important. You know, for kids to maintain where they are is really important. It's very important in their education development, but also in their just human development. So kids who are currently open enrolled to the district, we're not kicking those kids out at all. We're going to enable that continuity to occur. I will say we are absolutely going to look at any future kids who are open enrolling into the district, because schools don't get funded at the full level for kids who are open enrolled. It's a financial loss for a district to take a student who's open enrolled, because you get the state funding, you don't get the local funding. So with that idea in mind, so, you know, any student that currently goes here who is in Geneva, wherever, and they're open enrolled in, they're able to stay open enrolled in until they graduate. Like, that's the answer. The kid, you know, the student next year who's in 3rd grade and wants to open enroll from Perry, they will apply for open enrollment. We're going to look grade by grade, do we have room? The long answer to that is there's kind of a algorithm that's used. I'm going to simplify it dramatically. But let's say in 2nd grade you have 200 kids, and based on staffing, you're able to have 205, but you have 200. Somebody wants to open enroll into 2nd grade. The answer would be no for that student. We're too close to the cap. That you want to leave that 5 window, because kids can always move into the district. You have to have some wiggle room. Because the problem is if you go over that number, then you have to hire another staff member. Your financial loss for open enrollment now just got quadrupled. So you can't do it. You know, and I know a lot of districts who are in a financial difficulty right now are closing open enrollment. I think we strategically looked at that last year. It's not last year. It's before this school year happened. And we created a end date to open enrollment, which historically the district hasn't done, because I think we saw that this was coming, this open enrollment issue was coming. So even now, kids, they can't apply to open enroll here right now. They'll be able to apply for next year, but again, that's where we're going to look very specifically grade by grade is, do we have room? If we have room, sure, we'll take them. If we don't have room, we're not going to take them. Kids who are here open enrolled will stay here. Yes. No, those ones will stay where they are. Like, that's where we'll look at that 5% increase number. Like, that's really talking your traditional, somebody I think mentioned it, it's sports, band, cheerleading, like those larger expense areas. But yearbook doesn't have, like, they don't travel, they don't have all those other costs. There's not a lot of supplies or equipment with that either, or insurance for that matter. Yes, sir. So it'll be pre-K to 2 at South, 3 to 6 at the middle school, 7 to 12 here. So the times are going to change a little bit, and I can't tell you that yet because I think at the 7 to 12 building, it's going to end a little bit later. Elementary will still be first. Pre-K to 2 will still be first. 3 to 6 will be after. High school will be roughly where it's at, but we have to adjust a little bit for transportation as well. Somebody, yes. So in the idea of, let me hit both parts. One was class sizes and special ed students. So class sizes, the majority of reductions teacher-wise that we're making are in the younger grades. And that was really evident that there was that ability to do, because when you combine the two buildings, you no longer have, first grade here and first grade here, you're putting them all together. When you look at our class sizes at that point, you're able to see that we then have too many staff and we're able to reduce in those areas. The class size is not it is marginally impacted. It's not significantly impacted at any of the grade levels, really, because we have done it efficiently, like putting together buildings and putting together grade levels. It creates an efficiency with staffing. That's my one answer to that. The special ed question, we're not reducing in special ed at all. I think that, there's a couple of aid positions that are reduced, but it wasn't like we identified a special ed aid. Reductions really go through seniority. So we're not really reducing there. I would tell you that, again, combining grade levels from two different buildings, we're now going to be able to more efficiently staff those units, if it's a special ed unit, and utilize the staff there at a higher level. I would say at a better level. Yes. Yeah, so the question was, are the 7th and 8th graders going to be on block schedules or the traditional schedule they currently have at the middle school? So every option's been examined. Right now where it is, what I would tell you right now is the high school kids are going to stay on a block schedule. The 7th and 8th graders are going to have a separate schedule. And a lot of districts do this at the high school, or if there's a 7 to 12, they have a unique bell schedule, and really 8th grade's going to have a wing, and it's going to be kind of like a grade within a school. They're going to be their own team. The 7th grade's going to be their own team. And really what I would say right now is I anticipate we're going to change how the bell's working entirely, and 7th grade's not going to really have a bell. The staff will release them based on what time it is to go to the next class. But I do want people to know, 7th and 8th graders are going to use the cafeteria. They are going to use the gym. There are those common areas where they will go. It's just we're going to create that team within a school, a grade level within a school idea. The other part that I would tell you, which is a positive intentional consequence, but some would say unintentional, by moving the administrative staff from the admin building right now and putting them in buildings, we create the ability to have more people who can help within the buildings too. So I know right now a number of us are going to be at the 3 to 6 building. I think right now I will be there. which, you know, I was an assistant principal. I think I was really good at that. I'm happy to help at lunchtime. Like, you know, we can help because we're there. I'm anticipating there's a couple of district administrative people that'll be here, and the same thing, they can help here with some of that work as well, which I think that's a very positive, intentional decision, I think, that was made of being able to use people differently. So, yes. Yeah, so you know, and I've shared it, I think, a couple of times. I think that it's unique to look at. So one, I think I'm really attentive to school finance. Like, I know sometimes in my professional life, I think treasurers get frustrated with me because I really pay attention to school finance. Like, I find that very fascinating. So one, like, as I came in, I know within my first week of being here, I was asking questions about finance because I could see it. Like, it was very, very clear. So, you know, the district has been deficit spending and making small reductions for years. I mean, that's been happening for a while. But it's tied to our enrollment. Like, our enrollment has continually been decreasing, which creates a lack of state funding. Like, that aligns very connectedly. Secondarily, there were two other issues that happened that nobody could have projected. The state decreased funding to schools, and that has happened the past two-year periods. Like, they go through different funding mechanisms. In the past two times, they've decreased funding per student, 2 times in a row. So could you project it? I guess after it happens the first time, you can kind of imagine it's going to happen. I would tell you it's going to happen again. I mean, it's, you know, I'm a pretty good studier of the human experience, and if something happens a couple of times, I assume it's going to keep happening. So that. The other part was the county commissioners did the rollback on real estate taxes, which again impacts our funding. It was $400,000. I totally get why they did it. I'm not complaining about it. I'm telling you, it also impacted our funding, though. So all those things combined were part of it. How long the district's been deficit spending for, I don't know, 6-7 years and been making reductions. But I think some of the things were not able to be projected. Sorry, that was a long answer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of those, we know there's going to be unintended consequences, and one of those could be that kids, you know, families are going to see the just changes in grade levels, the transportation, the student fees, and then they're going to want to open enroll elsewhere. One, a lot of districts here don't take open enrollment, so that's one issue. There's not a lot of districts kids can go to around here. Secondarily, yes, it would be a financial impact to us. You know, the majority of our funding actually comes from state funding, so it would be, and that's part of that answer of, I don't have a number in mind that it's going to be. You know, I would say as we've looked at all these decisions, we've tried, not for that reason, I think just in reflection of families, we've tried to not overly impact any group. I know it's impactful. I'm not saying it's not. We just tried to not overly impact people. So I don't have a hard number, though. Yes. Yeah, the board actually just approved the course guide for high school, so it's live. Um, and just to kind of extrapolate and speak to that a little bit, these changes, while they impact the student experience, classes we're not greatly impacting at all. You know, I would tell you that with the high school, we've talked a lot about now that you're going to have 7th and 8th grade here, we believe there's an opportunity to have more electives now because we're diversifying the staff to some degree, and there's going to be some opportunity for developing some more, which you know, as Bob and I have come in, it's one of the things we talked about a lot at the high school is, you know, not having so many kids in study hall and providing more electives, which I think, you know, I've heard that from the school board, I've heard it from families. It's pretty consistent desire. Okay. Anything else I can answer? Yes. Yeah, so the question was with the 3 to 6 building, which is a middle school, they don't have like the playground for 3rd to 6th grade. Great point. And actually something we've looked at a lot to try to identify some ideas. And I know the team that we have with those buildings, they've started to explore costs of things to see kind of where you went. Is there an opportunity for some fundraising for that? And also, you know, we may be looking at how can we develop some things initially and then keep growing it as we go. So I know that the 2 principals from those 2 buildings, North and South, and some of their teams have looked at some of the things they can create there that are not super expensive. But yeah, that is something we have to do because that has changed that building. You're totally right. Yeah. And those are some of the things I think as you first look at building changes, you don't initially think of. And it's why, you know, I know for us it's been really valuable to get groups of individuals together to talk about it. It's why I'm really happy that the staff knows the answers so that way they can be part of that now too, the building level staffs too. There was somebody here. Yes. Okay, you asked like 4. I'm going to forget some of them. So I'm going to start in the middle because I remembered sidewalks, which was really good. Yeah, we'll be happy to talk to the township about that. I know, you know, they were impacted by some of the funding decisions I mentioned earlier too. Like they lost some funding too. But yeah, I'll be happy to talk to them. We've talked to the township about some of these changes and the impacts, but not some of those pieces. Will students be able to tour the buildings? Yes, that's something that the teams have looked at, is identifying opportunities to, you know, have community conversations with the 7 to 12 families and then be able to let the families come in to see, and kids, to see the 7th and 8th grade here and to be able to do that, which I think is going to be really important because it's a dramatic change, but it's important anyways when you start a new year. You asked 2 other things, I think, and I can't remember those 2. Okay, late start. Right now I would say we're not changing that, but that's where Some of those answers I don't fully have because I need our teams we have and the building folks to work through it and then make recommendations, which all those teams, those 3 teams we have, there are people who are in charge of that, because I fully believe I don't have all the answers. I don't believe I know everything. I believe that groups of people that work together, they identify good answers. And so that's really important. So some things I can't answer yet because I'm just sharing it and I need folks to flush it out a little bit to figure it out. Funding. No, the 7 to 12 building will have more funding aligned to the kids that are here because you're going to have about 400 more kids here. But for the district, the funding is the funding. But also, there's going to be more staff here now because the 7th and 8th grade teachers are going to be here too. There's probably going to be an additional counselor here. There's probably going to be an additional secretary. Like, there's going to be some additional staff here too. Okay, but not more funding in total for the district. Yes. I don't remember who was up. Sorry. No, so question was about kind of the makeup of the buildings, like as 4th grade and middle school. There's a few different things in there that I'll answer. One, at some point we're going to have to rename the buildings probably. You know, there's probably like, you know, it's probably like, I don't know. This is where I want people's input. I'm not telling you this is it. It's like early learning, intermediate, secondary. Something like that. I don't know. We're not changing signage. I want people to know that because, you know, there's a significant cost to that. But, you know, I think we'll retitle them in some way, but that'll be getting ideas, working with the board on that. No, we're not changing. Like the 4th grade experience is going to be the 4th grade experience. It is. It's just, it's going to be north and south together, so it's going to feel different. But, you know, I know you talked about switching classes, and it's just, you know, something of interest, I think, is, you know, traditionally 6th, 7th, and 8th, they start switching classes. One of the things we've talked about is ideally you have it start in 5th grade a little bit. You know, and in 4th grade, maybe it's specials a little bit. 5th grade, it's a couple classrooms. You know, it's doing it in a age developmentally appropriate way. I mean, that wasn't exactly where you were going. It just, okay. Yeah. Tell her to email me. I'll be happy. You know, I'm very happy. You know, I've had a number of students email me different things. They've actually emailed me recommendations too. I'm very happy to do that. So more than welcome to do that. Staffing wise, because that was a big question that with the staff meeting, staff wanted to know where they're going to go, which I totally get. Like that's like, these are big changes. The answer to that is staff are going to follow the grade levels they work with. That's the primary answer. There will be some changes. So what I explained was 90% of the staff are going to be at the place where their grade level is right now. 10%, there's going to be some fluidity because we're going to have to make decisions that are best for kids and put some staff in some different buildings to kind of adjust that. Okay? Can I go here first? Okay, yes. No, I think right now that's still going to be what it is. Yeah, you know, the the 7th and 8th grade wing is like in the traditional part of the building is what we're looking at. But quite honestly, and I know the high school, their team has really worked on this a lot, and they've looked at a lot of ideas. I think they've pretty much settled on the best answer. It's really now scheduling, which I think they're kind of close there. It's just flushing it out with more input too. Yes, sir. He forgot. I'll move on. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Very, very, for very, very, very little. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. The kind of easy answer, in the state, there's quite a debate about real estate funding of schools, and I think that's going to probably at some point become a vote for people to vote whether or not to get rid of that. I think a lot of school districts are looking at, and I would say at some point, a conversation for us is to talk about changing school funding for the district to look at potentially an income tax instead of real estate. But that's I want to say, by no means am I talking about that right now. Like, that's years down from now. A question that somebody had asked me in the staff meeting was, what were we going to do with the North and Admin preschool building? State law requires that after we aren't using it for 1 year, when it's been vacant of students for 1 year, we have to offer it to a community school, a charter school, which I don't believe any school there. I don't believe there's a school identified as such within Madison. Then we can auction it off. Those buildings obviously are not worth a lot of money. The land is worth some money. There's also, after that offer to the community charter school to buy it at the appraised value, by the way, we're able to auction it or trade it to a municipality, so we could trade it to the township for something. I think that area would be great for housing, which kind of ties back to your point. But again, I would say that's a couple years away. And ultimately, I think something the board has to decide what is the best answer for that. But, just naturally, when I look at the space and if we're not using it, it seems like it'd be a good area for housing. So I was kind of trying to tie a few things there. Okay. Yes. Wait. That was my fault. That wasn't you. It was me. That was my fault. That'd be great. Mm-hmm. Sure. Sure. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Sure. Hmm. Yeah. Sure. Sure. Yeah, that was great. You just gave the school finance answer. Um, no, and I would just say from my experience as a teacher, I worked in a district and they said no, the town right beside them said yes, and because they wanted to be a small town. I totally get it. Like, I get, like, that's a decision that folks have to make. The other town got it, the other town blew up, and they love it. And the other town folks complain all the time that they got those things, and their tax burden is different. They're hard decisions. I just think as a school district, whether it's an auction, whatever it might be, which Andrea, by the way, make sure you write the Chardon question about did they offer it to a charter school? 'Cause there may not be one there. That is, it's fine then at that point. But I think those are difficult things for areas to figure out. And you're right, though. When I came here, people talked about the wineries. I don't drink at all, so that totally confused me. I didn't even understand it entirely. And then I was telling friends where I was going, and they're like, oh, they have all these wineries up here. Like, Madison is known for their wineries. So, which is cool. I mean, that's a really good thing. And, I had friends that are like, hey, can you get me like somewhere I can stay and go to all the wineries? And so it's that hard balance, the decisions that I think communities make, because, for school districts, there's two funding sources, the state, local taxpayers. And, I think local taxpayers are a little wore out with taxing. And it's why I think, the board and we've made a deliberate decision that we're not talking about that at all. We're talking about this, which is not good, but we want to reduce the costs that we're creating because we don't want to. We have to balance the budget. But we don't want to go to the community and say, hey, we're $3 million short. We need more money. Because quite honestly, you're all wore out by that too. And you don't have the money to keep contributing to it. It's just the difficult decisions you have to make then. Sorry, I went on a little bit there. Yes. Do you want me to answer that first? Yes. Thank you, because you learned I can't remember everything. Yes, that is, the question was, is preschool going to be roughly the same as it is right now, just at South? Yes, and they've actually identified like an area that it can be within the building that's kind of separated. So it has kind of its own entry point, exit point. Yeah, there might be slight modifications to it. Preschool is funded differently because we get federal funding, but shocking to say this, but federal government has reduced that funding too. So we have to just be very intentional about that. But preschool is really important. We know the impact it makes for kids. That early learning is really important. Second question. Yeah, there are no reductions made in the specials area. We kept all the staffing. I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry. There was one reduced. There's a phys ed reduction, which we were able to do. There was not in the other areas that you identified. One area in particular, there was an opportunity to do it, I think, in art. We purposely decided not to do that because we see an opportunity to create electives with that at the 7 to 12 building. That was an intentional decision, actually. Yes. You know what? I've skipped you like 20 times, haven't I? Okay, you're next. Don't let anyone else raise their hand. Yes. Mm-hmm. I know that they've looked at it, and they've also looked at like the drop-off points, and there might be something that I know it's at least been talked about is looking at like 7th and 8th grade gets dropped off in one spot and 9 to 12 in another to try to create some elimination of that congestion. Yeah, the middle school, like, and obviously with different grade levels there, it'll be different, but with the middle school building, like, we're pretty fortunate. We have that big area in the back, so it enables pretty good drop-off pickup. But yeah, we'll look at it at everyone to try to make the right decisions of how to do it. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't have an answer to it yet, but yeah, that will be looked at. The other nice thing is Andrew is taking notes of all the things you guys ask, so I make sure I remember them later because Trenton pointed out I can't remember everything. So it's good that we'll be able to come back with our teams to really look at those too. You had a question. So I would say, do I have a plan for it right now? No, I know that as, like, not to keep picking on the 7 to 12 building, but it is something they've talked about of that, and using the middle school administrators to talk through that too, because they obviously experience it right now. Which, not that's not the only grade level that those happen, but middle school tends to be a hotbed of different things. But yes, and it also is a purposeful decision. We didn't reduce counselors, like we're not touching those other mental health support folks that we have. We're not doing anything to that, but they will end up developing plans of how we're supporting kids and families through that. Like, these are huge changes. So supporting people as we go through it. Other things I can answer? Yes. Mhm. Yeah. So the two questions, pre-K, is it AM, PM still? Yes. Second question was, is it going to be its own wing, because your point was it's really important. Yeah, right now it is their, like, as they develop the plan, it is their own little area. Like, they've specified that. I will say it's one of the cool things that pre-K is at our building, so we all get to see it quite a bit. It is and I've said this for years of my career now. I always tell people, go to preschool the first week of school and then go in the middle of the year. It is amazing the amount of growth you see in preschool kids. Like, I totally believe that's where you see the most growth of any grade level. I also think that people don't realize the importance of pre-K. It is really important, and also having gone there and not really helped, but smiled and waved when kids were crying in the morning at the beginning of the year. That's my version of helping, because then they cry and I just want to cry too and be like, no, go home to mommy, I agree. But the staff work really hard there. Like, they're really good. We're fortunate we have a really good pre-K team. Sorry, I went off a little bit there. Yes. Yeah, we're not looking at dramatic change. I mean, might it change a little bit? Yeah, it's not going to be dramatic. But we really are looking at preschool because it's not funded well, and it's a losing financial battle. We don't want to decimate it at all because we know the value of it. So it's trying to look at, are there some subtle changes we can make to make it more impactful, I guess. Okay. But no, financially, there would not be some dramatic change. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the 4-day work week, that was, I think I said it at some point, and then some people recommended it, and we actually did look pretty hard at that. The only way that does anything is if we directly change the income or the pay that we're paying staff. Like, we'd have to reduce it by 20%. It's not going to be able to happen, you know. The other part too, because some districts have done that 4-day work week. The other thing they've done is partner with like the Y to create a daycare program for that 5th day for families, because for families it's really hard. But you know, I would say that not only is it an issue with the first part of the staffing part, but the second part is the issue of, you know, the Y doesn't have that capability of doing the daycare. The third issue of the levy, it would fail. I mean, that's my simple answer, you know, and I'm saying that as somebody who's been in different districts. I pay pretty good attention to the state of Ohio and the movement. And when you look at levies passing, new levies don't pass in Ohio right now. Renewals pass at a 50-50 point. New levies do not pass at all. The thing long term, I think, for the district would be to look at, you know, this is years down the line, so I'm not saying this is an idea, and this is a board decision. I don't want to confuse that line. Long term, I think that looking at some sort of different thing like an income tax and then removing the levies, making it balanced for the school district and the community members. You know, people are not, and you're going to have to like talk through that and explain it really, really well. But then there's going to be some people that are going to they're going to do the math and they're going to say, well, I pay this in real estate, and if it's an income tax, I pay this. I'm not passing the income tax. So, but it's all a hard conversation. But right now in Ohio, new levies just don't pass. And that is very factual, high economic areas, low economic areas. And because of the huge statewide movement to abolish taxes, which has a lot of support, I just don't think it would pass. I think it's futile, and I don't want us to have that relationship with the community. I think we need to take some reduction steps. Yeah. We did a small incentive for staff to let us know they were retiring early, so that way they could be added to this. But, you know, a buyout was not financially positive for us to do. We looked at that pretty hard. I mean, I would tell you, we're like, of the 2.875, we're at almost 1.2 million of staff reductions. My worry of us going beyond that, we were going to change the student experience. We would have larger classrooms. We would eliminate specials. Like, those are the areas to hit. And, you know, those were key goals that we were trying not to do. Sure. No, you're fine, and believe me, I'm really happy for anybody to say or ask anything. I mean, that's, you know, the point. So thank you. No, it was looking at trying to create a balance. I mean, that is the simplest of answer I can say, is we tried to create a balance of, you're right, we are terribly impacting the student experience. They're going to go to different buildings. We're impacting the family experience a lot. One of the things we were really trying to not impact was the classroom student to teacher relationship, because we know how important that is for academics and student growth. That is like, they're still having the amount of attention they're going to have. There's not a great reduction of staff in that way, so it enables that to still occur. Yep. Yes. Yes. Yeah, there just won't be a freshman team. She'll be able to try out for JV and varsity. Yep. Okay. Anything? Yes. Yeah, we're not changing any of that. Yeah, those kinds of unique sixth grade opportunities are still there. Mm. Yes. Yeah, we aren't changing. I mean, we're reducing our contract with that because we're not going to use as many drivers and buses, which is going to let us, it's going to help us maintain the fleet because we're not using as many buses. So that'll be, there might be a couple, but not dramatically. That answer what you're asking? Okay. Other questions I can answer? Sure. $450. Yeah. So yeah, the easy answer is we're doing the same thing, bringing a lot of things back, and staff here will do it. The second part of students and who have disabilities, it's really case by case because some of those, it's an IEP team decision, the family's involved. We can't just unilaterally do it. I would tell you that we think Madison's the best case or best place for every kid, and they should come back. But I know sometimes families don't agree with us, and then that creates if the student is placed outside the district, they can file a due process and stay put. They get to stay where they are. But yeah, those are happening. I do envision some kids coming back is my easy answer. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yep. No, yeah, we run those ourselves. Yes. Him before you. No, no. Good. Yes, sir. No, there's current, the building has already started to, buildings tend to hold on to things, and we don't clean out stuff when it should be cleaned out. So this building has done a really good job of starting that. So there's additional space that had been storage that now we have a space. There's enough room here. There's actually, I don't want to say more than enough, but there's enough plenty. So there's no need to do that. It's just reconfiguring some of it, relooking at how we use it. And we're actually looking with, we're working with Crossroads at potentially having some space here to have a healthcare program where they would serve kids and staff potentially. So I was adding that to say that we have enough room. Yes. He was at the community interview for superintendents. It's funny, I was just telling people about that the other day, which, by the way, I loved those conversations with community members. He knows that I built a pool in another district, which I have to tell you was my worst experience ever in my life. So, yeah, I would tell you, so I like long-term planning. So, I know the administrative team has heard me say that next year is year one. We're making all these changes. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be dramatic. There's going to be things that happen we're going to have to fix. We're going to have to adjust. We know that. Next year is year one. I think in year three, which probably means a conversation in year two, is to work with the community and the Ohio Facilities Commission to look at rebuilding this building. And if you do, and I know the community is a little familiar, if you do that with the Ohio Facilities Commission, the state of Ohio pays for a large percentage of that. The other part will be through the community. But this building at some point needs attention, and it's not really refurbished at this point. It's probably rebuild. But I think that would be a year or two beyond next year. The thing I would tell you is if it is a 7 to 12 building, currently there's 780, 800 kids, let's just average it here, 200 in 7th grade, 200 in 8th grade, that makes about 1,200 kids here. Ohio Facility Commission will only let you build the building for what you have that's enrolled here. If we tried to rebuild this right now, they would enable us to work through the process. If we got local funding, they would only build the building for 780 kids or whatever it is right now. But next year, if there are 1,200 kids here, we could rebuild it at 1,200 kids. That's pretty comparable to what this building was built for. So it's a pretty good building. When I project out the hard that this is, the bad things I've shared tonight, that is the light at the end of the tunnel is rebuilding this building and imagining what that could be. It's still a financial impact to the community, but you can walk around the building and there's challenges here. The other thing I would tell you is we have a permanent improvement levy, which is not a lot of money. I think it's 1 mil, if I remember, 1 tax mill, if I remember correctly. Which is something over 100,000. I don't know, Dave, do you remember the exact number? Yeah, somewhere around there. Right now, we use that for the high school north and the admin building. The middle school and south has a part of when those buildings were built, within that bond issue, there is a permanent improvement fund that was set aside for those. So we don't use the permanent improvement for those two buildings. When it's just this building, we can now use all that money here for improvements. That's a positive too. You know, right now we're putting in a lot of money to one of the other two buildings, like at a greater rate, I guess. So yeah, I think long term it'd be great to do that here. I think that it's what's needed here is to do that. Ohio Facilities Commission. So you have to work with them to identify, first of all, the issue, the need, why it needs rebuilt, and then you have to work with them to get state funding support, and then with the grant, or I'm sorry, with the bond issue for the community. Anything else I can answer? Yes. Yes. Yeah, we've looked at these different things, but you know, again, it goes back to we're impacting a lot of things with kids already. We also know those things are really important, and it helps develop up to the high school. And our band is pretty stinking good. So, the best darn band around. I can't say the other word. Yes, Trenton. Will it be part of the high school marching band or separate? I would imagine it would be separate still. Yeah, I don't have that answer. It's going to involve the band folks to be part of it, but 7th and 8th grade, each of those grades is kind of going to be their own team and then their own piece of this building. So I would imagine it would be separate. It's a good question. Bob, you need to make sure you get Trenton involved on some of these teams. Okay. Plus, he made really nice cards for the board members last night. Other questions I can answer? Yes. The 7 to 12 shift? Joe, I'm not summarizing all that because they all answered each other's questions. So I'm just saying that up front, which was really good. I think that, it's when we started this, I think that I initially laid out some ideas. Our administrative team weighed in on some of that. I know I've told the board that the original plan to where it is now is so drastically different. Like, it has evolved. I don't remember if I said this, it was just over, I believe, or just under 200 ideas that were shared with us, which everything that I shared with you were actually different people gave us those ideas too. So that's been a definite goal of go to meetings, listen to people, hear what their thoughts were, consider them, reconsider them. And then a couple of people, there's been some people that have emailed me and I've gone back and forth with them to get some different thoughts too. So I totally agree. That's something I will continually say, even as their board members here. I don't know all the answers. I don't think I'm the great seer of all things. I think that I'm pretty good at listening to people and putting ideas together, and I can enable people to be part of the conversation. And the strength of those folks doing it, you're right. That's the good part. That's where we come up with good ideas. And then we get pushback again and hear it, just as we are now, of questions. And then we think about it again, and is there something different? Can we? And keep exploring it, which I think is the really good stuff. Bob, you wanted to say something? another district, we had it that preschool started at one time. It was preschool, kindergarten. Preschool started at one time, kindergarten started at a different time.
Yeah.
From the parent point of view, it was awful.
Yeah.
There's always going it's a half day, so there's always going to be that. But
yes,
we are looking at, is there a way to make that more uniform?
Yeah, maybe staggered by like 20 minutes or something, so you could drop one and then drop the other.
Circle
You're
back.
doing separate entrances. You talked about maybe separating where they're dropped.
Yeah, because I think that's a value of the preschool of how they currently do it, you know, but can we mimic that in some way at that building? But they've worked and identified some of the particulars, but it's really fleshing it out more.
Yeah.
It's not perfectly answered yet.
I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any talk about like switching, like the high school goes earlier, so then that way, like younger kids can get off the bus with like a high school student, then that could save parents being on childcare after school, or is it everybody is just staying the same because the littles are so amazing at 7:30 in the morning?
You know, this is, so as we looked at this, I really was trying to push the idea that we start in high school 7 to 12 earlier. Not everybody loves that, first of all. It's the issue of nobody wants to go first. Like, that's truly what I ultimately believe. And then older kid folks will tell you that all evidence, all research tells you they should start later. Like, right, Bob?
Correct.
That's the hard thing. So, well, the parent point's a good point too. So right now, high school time is, like, we're not expecting dramatic changes from the high school time. I believe I don't remember all the times right now, I'll be honest with you. High school, I think, is going to be a touch later than it is right now. By later, I mean it's going to be a little bit longer of a day, 5 minutes. Not dramatic. And then, I just can't remember, do you guys remember what those are? I just can't remember off the top of my head now. But there's not dramatic shifts. I remember that at the time. It wasn't hugely dramatic. So no, we didn't shift the order kids to earlier. Other things I can answer for you. And thank you for staying this whole time too. Anything else I can answer? Okay, thank you all very much. Have a great night.
Thank you.